Hybrid regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. I'm Laura Simon, Board President, and I would like to introduce my fellow trustees. Lisa Pelosi, Sean Mora, Jeannie Kerr, Jean Marie Wolf. I would also like to introduce our district staff, Superintendent Dr. Jody McClay, Assistant Superintendent Mr. Christopher Heller, Chief Business Official Dr. Kay Vang, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and Governing Board, Ms. Erica Madrigal, Executive Assistant to the Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Melissa Hanson, Director of Educational Services, Mrs. Araceli Romo Flores, and Director of Technology, Mr. Derek Machado. Additional site administrators are joining us in the audience. St. Helena High School Principal, Mr. Benjamin Cinto, RLS Middle School Principal, Mr. Andrew Ryan, St. Helena Elementary School Principal, Dr. Carmen Emery, and St. Helena Primary School Principal, Mrs. Rebecca Rocha. We're delighted that you are viewing in person, on Zoom, on television channel 27, or on our YouTube channel. A copy of this board meeting video will also be available on our website at www.sthelenaunified.org. In connection with item 4A, the board received information and provided staff with direction. Let's all stand for the flag salute. Item 6A, public comment on open session items. And we do not have anyone in the audience.
Well, you have to ask.
Oh, do we have anyone in the audience who'd like, no? Open call.
For items not on the agenda.
Oh, sorry, for items not on the agenda. No, anyone, Ms. Madrigal from, no, okay, thank you. Okay, item 7A, conduct the District of Choice Lottery and create the student waiting list for 2025 through 2026. And we are going to, oh, first of all, do we have any trustees with any questions for this item? No, okay. So we will conduct the lottery. Thank you, Trustee Pelosi and Trustee Kerr.
Thank you. Okay, perfect. Good evening, everybody. So we're going, I'm going to put the balls into the bowl, and I will have you then read them. I'll hand you the ball. You'll read it. They will record the numbers. And we are going in order, starting with TK. And as it's shown on the screen here, we're going with the first priority area, second priority, third priority, and we'll do that grade level by grade level. So are you going to stand all the way over there, though?
Do you want me to?
No, I think you should come over here because I'm going to come on this side, I think, if I could direct you. Because I think what'll be easier is I'm going to do this and hand it to you.
Okay.
And then you can read it into the microphone.
Okay.
We got this. Thank you very much. Okay, first batch will be the TK priority number 1.
B3.
I'll put it right back in here.
N45. N33. O61. N32. N36. B8.
Thank you. Okay, that's 7 there. Thank you. Next priority is 2. 5 applications over this.
I-27. Excuse me. N41. I-17. G47, N39.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're moving on to kindergarten. Priority number 1, we have 9. I can do that.
Thank you. G54, O73, O70, I20, N42. Are you guys okay? Okay. O68, I24, O67, B11.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Also kindergarten, we have 18 applications here. I think that works out better. to do
Yeah, I
this
do too.
all.
I do too. B9, B10, B6, B12, I21, B15, O66, N44, I29, G57, O75, B1, I22, O64, G55, G50, perfect, G60. Did you got that one, G60? Okay. And N35.
Thank you. Okay, first grade, priority 1, and we have just 1 here, but I'm just to be consistent.
O71,
Thank you. Okay, priority 2, first grade, 3 applicants.
O74, N43, G58,
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Second grade, priority 1, 3 applicants. There's that.
thank you. O63, I26, G48.
Thank you. Second grade, 2 applicants, second priority. There's that.
Thank you. O72 and I25.
Thank you. Third grade, priority 1, 2. There you go. 2.
Thank you. O62, G53,
Thank you. Okay, third grade, priority 1, 1. There you go.
O69.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Got it. Okay, fourth grade, priority 1, 2 applications. Thank you.
I-16, I-28.
Okay, also fourth grade, second priority, 1.
Thank you.
There you go.
Awesome, thank you. B2.
Okay, fifth grade, priority 1, 1 application.
O65.
Fifth grade, priority 2, 2 applications.
G52. And B14.
Okay, sixth grade, priority 1, 3 applications. Thank you.
N38. Let me make sure.
Okay,
Yes, N38. B5. And I-30.
keep trying to hand them in a way that.
I know, thank you, I appreciate that. I'm juggling them around.
Okay, sixth grade, second priority, 2 applications.
Thank you. N31. And I-18.
Okay, seventh grade, priority 1, we have 7 applications.
Thank you. B7. I-23. Thank you. N37. G51. G56. G49. And B13.
Seventh grade, second priority, 2 applications.
Thank you. G46 and I-19.
Thank you. So, okay, for 8th grade, there's none in priority 1? Okay, sorry? Okay, oh, got it, okay, thank you. We have, whoops, 3 applications.
And that's priority?
This is, yes,
Priority, okay.
thank you.
Thank you. B3. I-29. And B11.
Okay, right, okay. So this is 9th grade, priority 1, we have 9.
Thank you. I-18. O63. N39. O65. G59. I-25. G58. N37. And I-19.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 9th grade, priority 2, 27 applications.
Thank you. B14. O75. N38. O66, O68, O67, I-20, N32, O69, N40, B13, B5, B50, or I'm sorry, excuse me, G55, I-20, 26,
Yes.
I-26, G48, N33, N31, I-27, B8, O73, B10, G52, G56, I-28, B15, B12, and I-17. Nice. There's a lot tonight.
Okay, 10th grade, priority 1, 2 applications.
Erica, Miss Madrigal, here we go, thank you. N43. What is it? N41.
Thank you.
Thank you.
10th grade, priority 2, 8 applications.
G50. O71. G53. B7. O70. And that's 70. G50, or excuse me, G60. Where's that bad boy? N42. O61. Thank you.
Okay, for 11th grade, there's none in priority 1, so that's going to go right back to you, Miss Madrigal. And then in also 11th grade, we have 4 applications. This is for no priority.
Thank you. N45. N44. I-22. And N34.
Okay, 12th grade, priority 1. Looks like 3 applications.
Thank you. N35. G51. I-23.
Okay, this is the final
Thank
one,
you.
12th grade, second priority, 4 applications.
Thank you. O74. I-24. O62. I-30.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thanks for having us organized. Anything I can do?
Thank you, Trustee Pelosi and Trustee Kerr. While we're wrapping this up, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll be back. Thank you. Okay, we are back after that short break. Okay, we are on item 8A. The consent agenda contains routine items judged as appropriate to be acted upon in one motion. If a board member requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda, the item will be considered under discussion action items. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Okay. Were there any written comments submitted by members of the public? Nope, okay. Do the trustees have any questions on this agenda item?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf.
Aye.
Trustee Kurt.
Aye.
Trustee Mora.
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi.
Aye.
President Simon.
Aye, motion carried. Okay, 9A, Board President's Report. So we began the Board President's Report in the summer, which was an appropriate time to do so during our interim superintendent and our superintendent search. I spoke with Dr. McClay, and at this time, I'm going to be removing the Board President Report. I don't feel that it's necessary at this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have any questions? Do any trustees have any questions or comments about that decision?
I do not.
Okay. Let's move on to 9B, Superintendent's Report. Dr. McClay.
Thank you. I always appreciate the opportunity to give a little bit of an update about what's going on. First of all, I hope everyone had a lovely holiday. Happy New Year. It's hard to believe that 2025 is upon us. It's off and running. This week has been and last week, a super busy week here in the district with lots of great things. So we threw a few pictures in to show you a little bit of what's been going on. Today, we had the pleasure of surprising 5 of our employees at 4 different locations throughout the district. These employees were honored as Classified Employees of the Year. Now, of course, they will be brought to an upcoming board meeting to be recognized by you, in addition to being recognized at other events throughout the year, and then moving on to the county competition, of course. But it's always a favorite of mine, and I believe Cabinet, to be able to go out and surprise them at their work locations. First up, you'll see there from St. Helena Primary School, we recognized Nikki Myers as the Clerical and Administrative Services Classified Employee of the Year, and Dave Perry as Custodial and Maintenance Services. We surprised them at an all-school assembly, and it was really adorable. The students even guessed appropriately and accurately who the winners were going to be by our descriptions. So on the next slide, they were very proud of the winners. On the next slide, you'll see 2 others that we honored. We surprised Teresa Sepulveda from Food and Nutrition Services. She actually walked out. We were all standing there, and she was so embarrassed. She turned around and ran back in to the kitchen. It was really cute. The humility that they all express, it's clear why they are such superstars. They really, really have a caring heart toward our students and what they do. And Alicia Guzman, representing our paraprofessional services, we went over and surprised her in her classroom. And then the next one you'll see was Bryce Humphrey from our IT department, who we surprised here. There's one more that we will be honoring next week, so I won't say that employee's name right now. It is a surprise. And then, like I said, we will be bringing them forward to you later on, in addition to the Teachers of the Year. So we will bring them all forward for you. On the next one, you'll see I wanted to share just a little bit about kind of a plug for the annual Give Big campaign. This is beginning momentarily, and it will run through the end of March. I have the pleasure of meeting with this group of really dedicated volunteers from our parent groups and the St. Helena Foundation. This is their 11th year, I believe. The goal is to raise $250,000. And for those folks watching the meeting tonight and online, this program supports some amazing opportunities for our children, from field trips and guest speakers to STEAM opportunities, grants for teachers, all kinds of wonderful things that we see evidence of in our classrooms. So be on the lookout for flyers and signs throughout the community and in businesses. Again, donations will be accepted through the end of March. On the next one, you'll see we also kicked off, this was, I thought, an exciting opportunity. We kicked off what we would call our LCAP reflection process, and our very own director, I think Araceli Roma Flores is here, led our administrators and district administrators through the first process. And this is just the first group that looks at kind of a a mid-cycle of the LCAP. Now, granted, we're just one semester into the 3-year plan. This would be the time, and is the time, to really take stock, to look at those metrics. How are we doing? Are we doing what we said we were going to be doing? What kind of preliminary results are we seeing? And do we need to make some revisions? So this was the first group to begin this process, and then there will be many more groups that follow. But as you can see, they're looking at the goal, the actions, what's going well, what should be kept and why, and then of course, what is new that needs to be added, or what do we need to start because we said we would do it, and we're 6 months in. So again, there will be many, many more opportunities for people from throughout the community and other partners to join in this process, but this was the kickoff this week. On the next slide, you'll see, and that's a horrible picture of me. Oh my goodness, we need to fix that. So, oh my gosh. Okay, scroll down. I can't look at it. I just wanted to share that we are launching a new community newsletter and staff newsletter. They will alternate each Friday. So starting tomorrow, the community newsletter will go. Hopefully we can get that picture fixed. And then I will rotate between doing a quick video, which I did today over at the primary school in the library. That's that video, or a written message. And then there will be lots of other pieces of information in the newsletters. Hopefully a way to just connect with our families, provide resources, as well as to staff. So the community one launches tomorrow, and then staff will launch next Friday, and then they will alternate each week. And then the other thing I wanted to share, Miss Madrigal came up with this really creative name. I'll be doing a Java with Jody quarterly, and the first one is coming up next week. So in January, I will be at Valley Cafe, open to all community members to come on in and just chat informally. What's going well with our schools and for our children? What concerns do we have? What kind of brainstorming would we like to do together? Would we like to learn more about the district, et cetera, et cetera? So a very informal opportunity for anyone in the community to come have a cup of Java and learn more about the district for both of us, really. And then I think, is there anything? Yes, the dashboard. Finally, the board will be seeing the dashboard presentation tonight. And as Ms. Romo Flores will, I'm sure, explain far more eloquently than I could have, it's dense. There's a lot in it. We wanted to be transparent and make sure that we provided all of the data within the report, but obviously she won't go through that, or we would be here probably until 2 o'clock in the morning and all glassy-eyed over. So we've picked and chosen what to highlight tonight, but it is an opportunity for you to see some of the successes. There are some successes, albeit maybe some of them aren't as great as we would have liked to have seen, but there are some, particularly you'll see in mathematics with our special education and our EL students. Again, they didn't make the growth that we had hoped for, but they did make growth. And so we want to take stock of that. We want to celebrate that. And then we also obviously want to use this data to identify what areas do we need to continue working on? And you will see, obviously, that math continues to be one of those areas. So I did want to reiterate to all those folks who are watching, as well as to the board, there is a lot already going on with math. We are meeting almost daily. I think we've had 3 meetings this week with different groups regarding mathematics and really taking a deeper dive into what are we doing and what kinds of results are we getting and how could we impact those results even more. So lots more to come on math, but I wanted to reassure folks that we've got a lot going on, especially for those students and parents who spoke to us last month. We're also looking at enrichment opportunities, acceleration opportunities. We are listening. So I wanted to be sure that we shared that with you. And I think that is it. Let me check. Did I hit it all? I think so. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 9C is our St. Helena Teachers Association report to the board. And we have Mr. Lusseldorf. Thank you.
Good evening. I have a whole speech. Just kidding. Good evening, trustees. Hope you're having a good start to the new year. Not much to say other than I did a nice little PLC meeting on Wednesday, and it was nice that we had a chance to meet with the Social Studies Department at RLS. And it was just a good reminder to see how, again, how dedicated I think our staff is. I saw rich discussion and stuff like that, stuff related to improving life for our students. And I still remember my student teaching days when I was in Santa Cruz, and I remember they had staff meetings there. You know how many teachers went to the staff meetings there? 2, 3. Our staff meetings, everybody's there, unless they've already talked to one of our principals ahead of time. It's a totally different level of engagement, and that's one of the great things I find at this site. Probably one of the most professional staffs you'll find, I would say, in the state. And so it's just an honor to be surrounded by people who are inspired to teach every day and make the kids' lives better. So, and I hope everyone has a great start to the new year, and we're looking forward to it. So, thank you. Yeah, and welcome, President. All right, thank you. So, all right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for being here as always. Okay, 9D, we have our California School Employees Association report to the board, and their new president is Mr. Perry. Do we have him, or does he have a written message for us? Oh, wonderful. You have someone? Oh. No. Okay. Okay, items 9E, F, G, and H are the written reports from the site principals, and as always, we appreciate you compiling those for us and highlighting students and parents. Thank you. Okay, next we have 10A, presentation of the 2024-2025 St. Helena Primary School Site Strategic Plan. Mrs. Rebecca Rocha, thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, President Simon, members of the board, Superintendent McClay, and members of Cabinet. Thank you for having me here this evening. Happy New Year. This is our site plan. Oh, I see the clicker, sorry. So I know that you've already seen, clicking. Okay, there we go, sorry. You've seen our comprehensive site plan. This is an overview of the goals that align to the district goals and all of the actions that we are doing this year at our site. I'm not going to go through all of them. I chose to do this a little bit differently. I'm going to just highlight some actions under each goal that all tie together, and I hope that you'll see how they all tie together. So I decided to mix it up a little bit. I did want to point out on this slide that in terms of in goal number 1, I think there was a mention of, there was a question of, right, the last bullet on goal number 1. The teachers on special assignment, our reading intervention teacher and our math instructional coach, they're also shared with the elementary school. So they're kind of part-time at our school, part-time elementary. And the reason that I'm calling her the academic support TOSA is kind of a new position because we collapsed classes and because our classes were so small last year, we went from 4 to 3 in every grade level. That allowed us to have, with some other shifts, that allowed us to have one additional staff member who happens to this year to be Caitlin Levine. So she is our academic TOSA. The reason I'm calling her academic is because she's doing so many different things. She's doing math intervention, reading intervention, ELD. So I'm calling her our academic TOSA. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so this is our first goal, our first action under goal 1. I wanted to let you know that one of the things that we did this year was that we adopted a new phonics program that's from University Florida Literacy Institute Foundations. That's the name of it. It really aligns to the phonics that we're being taught through our state adopted English language arts curriculum, which is Benchmark. Some of our teachers had piloted this phonics program the year before, and they found it to be really beneficial because it really goes in depth in all of the phonics skills, and it's just very explicit and strategic, whereas the Benchmark program just kind of breezed through the phonics skills, and they found that the students weren't reaching mastery. So this year, everyone is teaching that, and what I'd really want to highlight is that in August, every single one of our teachers attended an optional professional development day, including our speech and language therapist, who asked if she could come as well. So as Mr. Luesdorf said, that's, to chime in on what he said, that's not really common in a lot of places, that you would have every single teacher come to a PD during their summer vacation. So the way that this is working is that all of our students receive instruction in that phonics lesson in their classroom, and then they go out to small groups based on their level. So everyone is being exposed to the grade level expectation. And then students that are in what we call tier 2, meaning they're reading within grade level range, but they're slightly behind. They are going to a classroom with it varies a little bit by grade. I'll reference second grade to give you one example. They go to all of those students do like what we call walk to read. So all of the students receiving tier 2 will go to one classroom where they're getting seen by a classroom teacher and then a paraeducator. So we're calling it a double dip. They're getting 2 groups a day. And then our tier 3 students, who are students that are significantly below grade level and need more support, they're getting a small group with our reading specialist, Jocelyn Ivanoff, and that Caitlin Levine, who I'm calling our academic TOSA, also happens to be a reading specialist. It just so happened she wasn't chosen to be the academic TOSA for that reason. She was the teacher that opted to be the teacher on special assignment. So it works out this year that those students are receiving 2 reading groups a day with 2 reading specialists. This is just some data that is just highlighting that goal. I realized this evening I made a mistake on this slide. This is all of our second grade students. It's not just Latino students. I apologize. I sent Erica a correction, but it was too late. But you'll see this is just a comparison with their MAP scores of our current second grade cohort from the end of first grade, the spring of first grade, to the fall of second grade. So you will see the growth that was made with our white students as well as our Latino students, who we tend to see that achievement gap with. For this assessment, this is some other data that I wanted to share. This is more what we would call our local data. This is our benchmark oral reading record, which is really what some people refer to as a running record. It's our current second graders. It is really the student sitting down one-on-one with the teacher, reading a passage that's leveled, and the teacher's measuring their accuracy, fluency, and then asking them some comprehension questions. So at the bottom, it's proficient is basically at grade level. Strategic would be in the grade level range, but a little behind. And then the students that scored intensive, meaning that they are below grade level. So the subgroups that I focused on are pretty much all of our student subgroups that we have are redesignated fluent English proficient. And then our Hispanic non-English learners, and then our white students. It's nice to see that we don't see that achievement gap with our Hispanic students that are English proficient, as well as our redesignated students in second grade. And then you'll see those similar groups in strategic. The acronym that I wanted to explain was the SWD, Students with Disabilities. You'll see that they are at the intensive level. Those are students that have an IEP, an individual education plan. They have a learning disability. And what I wanted to highlight was that most of our students with disabilities in second grade are also English learners. So even though it's showing as 2 different groups on the graph, as we know, sometimes those students are in multiple groups. I think that was what I wanted to say for that. So this is just another artifact that I wanted to talk about. When they go out to their groups, their differentiated literacy groups, they're very targeted, they're very explicit and systematic. Some groups are, the tier 2 specifically and the tier 3, are really doing more practice on those phonics skills. They're doing a lot of work with dictation, letter sound manipulation. One of the things that we did in the last few years is we've been purchasing decodable readers that really, they're books that really match those phonics skills that the students are learning, so that they have an opportunity to not just learn those phonics skills in an isolated setting, but then they're reading books that match that skill that they've been read, so they're reading in context. And it was great to be able to, we are really creative piecing these things together, and it's been nice to have the resources that we need to do that, because there's no one program that's going to do all of that for your students. And the students that are at a higher level, they're above grade level, or at or above, aren't doing as much of the phonics work. They're reading more of our leveled readers, and they're really working more on reading comprehension. And these are just some more artifacts that are showing we have these letter trays, magnetic letters, where when they're working in their small group and the teachers are working with them on building words and manipulating those letter sounds, those are some of the things that they're using, so it's really hands-on for them. And then just a picture of some of our decodable books that we've been able to buy. So this is just another artifact that just kind of shows how it's working in second grade. It's very similar in first. They're not doing as much leaving of their general education classroom, but it's set up in a similar way. So 2 of our second grade teachers, for those tier 1 students that are at or above grade level, 2 teachers are seeing those students. And then in tier 2, they're going with Mrs. Mead, and they see a paraeducator, so they're getting that double dip. And then in tier 3, they're seeing Mrs. Levine and Mrs. Ivanoff for their 2 lessons a day. And this is about an hour of their day. So this is this is at a time where in many classrooms and in many schools, kids are doing reading groups. So if you were to walk into a classroom, you might see some kids, on a computer, some kids in centers, what we would call, some kids writing in journals. So they're not missing, when they leave their classroom, they're not missing any instruction. The only difference really is that those tier 2 and tier 3 students don't have as much independent time as the tier 1 students. You might see those kids spending more time doing a journal writing center, reading a book to themselves, whereas the students that need more support are receiving more instruction. This is just an example of Mrs. Mead's schedule. So I took off the student names, but this is a slide she would have up for them. 6 students would meet with her, and then while the other 6 students would work with that paraeducator. The day that I went in, she was doing a phonics game with them. So just practicing that phonics skill in a game type setting, and then she was supporting them with their independent writing. So that's just an example. What I didn't put on the previous slide is that our special education students are also seeing their special education, our resource specialist and the classroom teacher. So we don't call our students with IEPs, we don't consider them tier 3. They're students with IEPs, and so they're getting their services at the same time as the other students, so they're not missing anything from our educational specialist, and then they get another reading group with the classroom teacher, so they're also getting a double dip of services. For our special education teacher is also a reading specialist, so that's also a wonderful gift to have. So this is our goal 2, our multi-tiered system of support team. We meet every week to monitor students, but every week we're focusing on a different group. So one week we go through cycles. So one week we're looking at all of our students whose progress we're monitoring for academics. The next week we're talking about our students with social emotional needs. The next week, behavioral needs. Any student that is tier 3, that's who we're monitoring, or students that teachers let us know they're worried about. If a student is tier 3, receiving tier 3 services, that's what we don't want to refer to them as a tier 3 student. They're students receiving tier 3 services. We have meetings with their families, and we let them know exactly this is the support that they're needing, this is the level that they're at, and this is the support that we're giving them. So I wanted to highlight that we have those family meetings. We call them individual progress monitoring meetings, and we do those every 6 weeks. We reassess them every 6 weeks to measure their growth. And I wanted to highlight that in those family meetings, one of the things that, I'm not sure why. Okay, this goes with the individual progress monitoring family meeting that I was referring to. This is an example of one student. I took her name off of it, but this is an example of the document that's shared with them. We also translate it if they're a Spanish speaker. We let them know not just that their student is below grade level, but what the specific 6-week goal is for them to master, and then what that action plan is for them. So how we're going to help the student meet that goal. And then in 6 weeks, we have an outcome, we meet again. In this particular case, the student didn't meet that specific goal. You'll see that it's very specific. The student we were working on, it was a first grader, her mastering consonant, vowel, consonant. So those short vowel, cat, dog, mat. And she didn't meet the goal, which happens sometimes. So then we come up with a new plan. And that's just an example of her daily instruction. She receives her tier 1 with her classroom teacher, Mrs. Ronayne. She's still being exposed to the grade level expectation, but then she goes with to her 2 reading groups in tier 2 and 3. It's a little, even though we're calling it tier 3, it's 2 groups. Mrs. Levine is kind of her tier 2. Mrs. Ivanoff is her tier 3. And so one thing that I wanted to highlight was that when we had a family meeting with the students' parents, one of the things that Mrs. Ivanoff offered for all of the reading intervention students was a meeting with the parents to show them how to support their students at home, send them home with some letter boards, some whiteboards, dry erase markers, ways to practice the phonics. And this family was clear to us that they weren't able to help their child because they didn't speak English. And so Mrs. Ivanoff is actually working with those students before school. And she's doing that homework phonics practice with them. So I wanted to highlight that. So this third goal, which really ties to our parent engagement, we started this year a monthly parent education series. We always had a teacher in our district, it happened to be a primary school teacher, who partnered with our local preschools to do parent education nights every month. And then Julio Olguin for Preschool for All also did parent education for Preschool for All. At the end of last year, one of our teachers said, "Why aren't we including TK in this preschool series?" And it was like, great idea. And then what was happening was that was usually translated for the Spanish speaking parents. And so what I decided to ask of Julio, which we're doing, is a completely separate series in Spanish. And we are inviting all of the Preschool for All Spanish speaking families and all of our Spanish speaking families at our school, especially because we're such a small community, to have a meeting or a training, really, if only 6 people come. And why not expose all of our parents to this education that we're doing. So for the English series, and they are at staggered times, so I have heard that some of the parents are going to both, which is nice. Our English speaking series, Gigi Ronayne works very closely with Maureen Kelly from the co-op, and they're bringing different people from the community. One person is a parenting coach. In years past, she's brought like our school counselor to talk about social emotional. Our Spanish series, we're really trying to focus on academics. And so we're also partnering with Up Valley Family Center. So for the academic piece, the first 2 meetings, and these are monthly for both groups, the first 2 trainings, I don't even want to call them meetings, they're really parent trainings that we've had, have been reading at home in Spanish and teaching parents the letter sounds in English and giving them some materials and resources to use. I basically pulled all the books that we had, a lot of books at our school left over from the immersion days, which were just sitting in boxes. And I made book bags for every family. And so when they come, they swap out their books and get new ones. And one of our kindergarten teachers, Gladys Hernandez, she led those first 2 sessions and really worked with them on how to read at home with your kids. And we want them reading in Spanish. We want their kids exposed to their home language and developing that, because that's going to help them master English. But then she also really worked with them on English phonics letter sounds. We also purchased a curriculum from the Latino Family Literacy that is teaching parents English phonics. But part of it is that Up Valley is also going to be teaching the positive parenting classes, triple P, to our parents. And then a program that they have that is called Primeros Pasos, which is really aimed at preschool kids. It's like a play group that they do during the day in Spanish to like teach parents how to engage with their kids. But they do all these hands-on activities. I asked if they would do that for our older students in Spanish. Well, older, I mean up to second grade, because our students are really missing that opportunity to engage in Spanish outside of their family unit. And so we've been providing childcare for the first 2 meetings, and then the idea is that when they come in to start the triple P classes, their staff is going to offer those same experiences like arts and crafts, and I'm not actually sure what they all are. I just know they're hands-on exploratory play. They're going to be offering that to our students whose parents come to that. So that really ties in nicely with our academic goal of really training those parents on how to support their students academically. So this is just a couple of the flyers, just the English flyer and the Spanish flyer with the dates on it. So, do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Mrs. Rocha. Okay, is anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Okay, do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
I do not. Thank you,
No?
though, as always. And you kind of filled in, the presentation fills in some of the answers that we're looking for just by reading the presentation. So thank you. Same.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, item 10B, presentation on the California dashboard indicators. And call on Mrs. Araceli Roma Flores. Thank you.
Good evening, President Simon and Board of Trustees and Dr. McClay. I will be presenting on the California's Accountability and Continuous Improvement System called the California School Dashboard. It provides information on how districts and schools are meeting the needs of their students based on multiple measures, both state and local. And the purpose of it is to help districts and schools to identify strengths, weaknesses, and areas that need improvement. I, as Dr. McClay mentioned earlier, have modified this presentation, and so it's going to be much shorter. But you'll see that there are some pages referenced there, so if you want to look at your own presentation that's in the board packet, you can refer to those slides. For the public, I also just want to make sure that they know that we've included, like Dr. McClay said, a lot of slides in the board packet, but that would take forever to present. And so we're just going to do some of the key components of the California dashboard this evening. And so we're going to move forward with that. And I just want to point out that this is based on last year's data. So it is based on CAS data for grades 3 through 8 and 11 from last year. And the English learner data is last year's English learners. Okay. All right. So a welcome change to the California dashboard came with the passing of Senate Bill 114. That did require that California, the CD, put out this information sooner, publish it sooner, which is really nice. Last year was presented to districts on December 15th, and so now it's December 1st, and then in the subsequent years, it'll come out even sooner. So the goal of that is to make sure that the goal that it's more actionable data, and so we welcome that change. It will require that CalPADS data or deadlines be moved up, but that should be easy to accommodate. Okay, so the California dashboard measures schools and district success based on 6 state measures and 5 local measures. And you'll notice that the academic performance is broken out in language arts, English language arts, and math. There is no component for science. It is just for informational purposes, so it's not listed on the dashboard. Okay. So this landing page for districts on the California dashboard allow us to see at a glance an overview of how we're performing on the different measures. They are based on local and state measures, as you can tell. And then one of the key things is that the colors are determined by performance on current data on the based on current data, which is really last year's data, and then if it changed from the year before that. So they were looking at growth. They want to make sure that districts are moving forward. And so they use a 5x5 grid to determine your color for each of these categories. And it's a different criteria for every single one of these categories. So, so it's kind of complex, but they give us a color based on if students are meeting the standard and if they're making growth. They want to see both progress and growth, proficiency and growth. So it's important to understand who makes up our unduplicated student count. The LCFF, the local control funding formula, is based on our unduplicated students, and so it's important to see who we're serving. And I do want to point out, I know that there was a question about the discrepancy between the enrollment data on this document or on this slide in contrast to what's on the suspension data. And I suspect, and I was kind of researching to see if I was on track, and it sounds like I am. The enrollment data is gathered on October when they do the CalPAD census. So it's the first Wednesday of October every year where they get the enrollment data. And then the suspension data and all the other data is not gathered until the end of the school year. Okay. And also want to point out that we do have a new category of students that are listed in the achievement results, and that's the long-term English learners. And long-term English learners are students that have remained English learners for 7 or more years. So the California dashboard has 3 categories to provide a comprehensive view of a district or school's performance by looking beyond just test scores. So they're looking at academic engagement, conditions, and climate. So it's not just academic performance. They're really looking at a holistic view of a school and district. So that's why the 3 categories. So we're going to begin with our academic performance in English language arts. And again, this is based on last year's results. And although overall we show good performance, we have several subgroups who have either not increased their score towards standard met or maintained their score or declined. So, so we have long-term English learners. You can see that that's one of our students groups that we really need to make sure that we are providing additional supports and services to. And we also have students in the orange student groups in the orange that we need to be looking at as well. And we did see a decline, so that's something that we want to address as well. This, I left this slide in because I think this one's more relevant to us. We were having this discussion as a leadership team, really looking at, one of our goals should be to make sure that we are reducing the number of students who fall into that red category of standard not met. And so if you look at longitudinally, we would hope that we were declining in that area, but we haven't yet. So that's something that we want to address. And in math, overall, we fall below standard and have not made gains. We've maintained, and we do have several subgroups in the red and orange categories that we want to make sure that we're addressing. So we are, again, looking at we're analyzing our data. We've spent some time analyzing our data just this week and looking to see how we can better support our students in the area of math. And like Dr. McClay has mentioned, we've been putting a lot of emphasis in the area of math, having lots of discussions and brainstorms and just talking about how we can improve that. And again, we're aiming to decrease the number of students falling into the standard not met category. We want to move those students up the performance bands. We don't want to see that orange band getting larger. So that's something we're trying to address. For English learner progress, this one is different from the others because this is based on all of our English learners, so from kindergarten to 12th grade. So the other data pieces were for our 3rd through 8th and 11th graders. And this data point here is based on our English learners kindergarten through 12th grade. And this is really looking at a growth model. They're wanting to see that students are progressing on the LPAC, the English Language Proficiency for California test. They want to see that their students are increasing a band, making gains. And when they don't, when they decline, our dashboard reflects that in the orange. So for college and career indicators, this measures the percentage of high school graduates who are prepared for college or career. And this is based on several factors, but some of the criteria include students being who pass AP exams, who complete college coursework, students who complete a CTE pathway, students in IB, for example, students who earn the state seal of biliteracy. So there's lots of different criteria that the state looks at to see if we are preparing students for college and career. And I wanted to point out that there's no performance color for some of these subgroups because the number's not large enough. You need to have 30 students or more to have a color band. For chronic absenteeism, this is the one area where we like to see the decline. That's something to celebrate because we want to make sure that students are in school, and so we don't want them chronically absent. Students are identified as chronically absent if they miss 10% of the school year, and that has declined, so we're happy about that. And we can't move students, help students to become proficient if they're not with us. And so we really want to make sure that our students are present in their seats getting the instruction. We do have some areas of red. Again, we have some subgroups that we need to address, though. We have the homeless students and students with disabilities that are in the orange and the red. And so that's something that we need to look at to determine root causes for that. And then for suspension data, that has not changed significantly, but it really is hard for a district of our size to draw reliable conclusions based on this, just because of our numbers. And but we do have one group in the red and several groups in the orange, and so we do need to look at that as well. For the graduation rate, we're in the blue, which is a huge celebration. 96.6% of our students graduated. And if you look at that along with our college and career indicator, that's definitely something to celebrate. That's definitely a highlight for this district. That's something we can all be incredibly proud of. So highlights, again, these are just some of the academic highlights for St. Helena Unified School District. We have several things that are going well for certain students, and for some students we have some areas to address. And so these are some of the areas to address for some of our subgroups. And again, these are our unduplicated students that require additional services and support. And this is not unique to St. Helena either. This is very common. But that's why LCFF provides additional funds for those students. And these are some of the highlights for engagement and conditions and climate. And then these are areas to address for these subgroups. And as we mentioned, there are a lot more reports, and even the reports that I presented in the board packet are limited. There are a lot more that you can take deeper dives into. If you go into the California dashboard, there are significantly more reports. So if anybody's interested in gathering more information, this is the website where you could find that data. You just type in either your school name or your district name, and you can start exploring all of the different reports, because reports have sub-reports in them, and you could just go deeper and deeper as you like. So district initiatives, these are some of the things that we are working on. We're busy analyzing our data and current practices. We're in the process of making adjustments to our LCAP and SIPSAs based on student needs. And so, as I mentioned before, Dr. McClay mentioned, we're really taking the time to really analyze our data, understand what we have in place in our LCAP now that's working, what's not working yet, or what needs to be started or implemented brand new, because there are some things that we feel would benefit our students that are not in the current LCAP, and so we're going to be doing some adjustments. And that's it. Any questions?
Is there anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Okay. Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
Thank you. And thank you for putting the slide number up there, because so that I could figure out what I was looking at.
That was Dr.
On the
McClay's idea.
condensed version. Well, thank you. That was, so I guess to go to slide 44 as an example, if you can scroll back. You previously mentioned that you need to have 30 or more students in a subgroup to show up with a color. Do we have 30 homeless students to have this show up? I think it was homeless as a subcategory showing up on slide 39 and 44.
Let's see. Well, so this is one of the tricky pieces.
Okay.
And I can make copies of this if you'd like, but each area, suspension rate, graduation rate, the English Learner Performance Indicator, each one has their own criteria, and so
the counts are different. They're not all 30.
no,
is
they're
the
not
answer.
all 30.
Okay.
Some are 10.
Okay, thank you.
And some are 30.
That was what's-
Most of the academics are 30.
Okay.
For English learners,
makes
for
sense.
example, it's 10.
Okay.
So,
Okay, thank you.
So it's very different for each one. It's very complex.
Thank you.
What is the homeless one? Dr. McClay, did you?
I'm racking my brain because I just talked to the county about it a couple weeks ago, and I think it was either 11 or 15.
Okay.
I'll go back and confirm with you.
Okay.
Thank you. And then for those areas, which slide are you on? Perfect slide. So we have students in some of these subgroups that we don't have enough to count as a color. Is there a way for small districts such as ourselves to see what the color would be based on the number of students? Because just because we don't have many of them doesn't mean we shouldn't be looking at them.
Absolutely. And we do have a student information system where we could pull that data from, so. yes,
And it
there's
matches
a-
all the dashboard criteria, though?
Yes, because
Oh,
our student
okay.
information system feeds
Okay.
into CalPads, and then CalPads feeds into this.
Okay, so we are looking at the subgroups that don't have enough to be on this category, because all of the people, or all of the subgroups in this bottom right picture that's gray could be in orange or red, and we don't know. by looking at this dashboard?
I'm not, yeah.
I'm not
sure.
saying they
Yeah.
are, but yeah, okay. But someone is looking at that.
To be honest, I don't know if we have yet, but
Okay.
it's something that we could definitely easily do.
Thank you. That was it.
She asked my question.
Did she? Okay.
So,
Any other questions?
I do. Oh, no, go ahead. No, I'm not prepared. Go ahead.
Excuse me. On the population, and I had talked to Jody earlier, 14.2% English learners just seemed really low to me. Is that the correct number of our student population? I just thought that sounded
Yeah.
really low for our student population.
I believe it is.
Okay.
I thought it was 29.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we do, when students are reclassified, they're no longer listed there, so they have to be current English learners. Yeah, so we were looking at that earlier today because, this week, because our numbers are smaller for English learners.
Yeah, that seems so much smaller than what we've been told in the past, especially with 51% of our student body as Hispanic and Latino. I know not all of those, a lot of the students are English only or reclassified, but 14%, it just seems lower than
I mean, it could just be
what
that
we,
we're
okay.
getting smaller and smaller at the primary level, so as a percent of our total
Oh,
student
that's right, we don't
population.
have the primary
I don't know.
students and, yeah, that's correct.
Well, we do.
That's,
We do in the,
Yeah.
for the English learners, that they are counted.
They're in there for primary?
Because it's a different test, is that correct, that they're taking? Is that why they're?
So for the English learner test, the
Yeah.
English learner proficiency indicator, it's all of our kinder and
Okay.
through 12th grade.
Okay.
So this is the first year.
Yes, it's
last
true.
Number of
year-
students,
And
though.
last year, we actually counted our TK as well. This is the first year where the state is not requiring us to test our TK for English learner status. And so, so these are numbers, our numbers may be even smaller this coming year, or our current year.
But Mrs. Romo Flores, are you saying that grades other than 3 through 8 and 11 are depicted in this data on the dashboard?
No, well, yes, for this. So not on the academic piece, I want to be really clear. For the academic piece, it's only our 3rd through 8th graders and 11th graders. And for the LP, the English Learner Proficiency Indicator, that has our kinder through 12th grade students.
But that is not
English learners.
on the dashboard.
It is.
It is on the dashboard.
It is. It's right here. Let's see. There it goes. So that is an indicator of our K, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, K through 12th.
Thank
They're
you.
all English learners.
Okay, so since, I'm sorry, no. So I'm going to refer to the same slide. So on the bottom, could you, so 56.9% are making progress. It declined by 10.6, and the number of students, 116, is, so what exactly does that mean?
So that means that we 116 English learners, kinder through, actually last year it was TK through 12th grade.
Okay.
This is based on last year's data. TK through 12th grade took the LPAC, the English Learner Proficiency Assessment for California.
Okay.
It's called the LPAC. They have to, English learners, once they're identified as English learners through the initial LPAC assessment, they are English learners until they're reclassified. They have to meet the state criteria, which is very rigorous, to be reclassified. And so until they are reclassified, they have to take this test every single year. And we want to make sure that students are making advances on the band, the performance band, and getting to an overall LPAC 4. If they don't get to the overall LPAC 4, they can't even be considered for reclassification. And so all of these students have not yet met the state and local criteria to be reclassified. So we have 116 students that are English learners. Some of those 116 students are considered long-term English learners. That means that they've been English learners for 7 years or more. And so that's a concern. Right? We want them to be reclassified within 5 years, ideally.
And then with this, then, because I looked at last year's test, and it was English learner progress was in the blue, and now we're in the orange. So what causes that much of a change? What was or is that something that's still being explored? What's the cause of that such a significant?
Yeah, that's being explored, so
Okay.
we're still looking at that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter, the LP, so Ben was saying we classified a lot of students, but the beauty about this dashboard tile is that it's really looking at progress. It's a growth model, because they're looking at how many students are currently English learners and how many students are making progress across that proficiency band. And the goal is to see them make progress every year, making some significant gains, at least a band. And if they don't, then that's where we get the decline.
Okay, but it's interesting that 56.9% are making progress, though. That more than half are making progress. That it's still in orange. So I'll just leave it at that. It's just kind of confusing that way.
And I think one of the biggest concerns is the long-term English learners, because we expect that all districts are going to have English learners. That's an expectation, and it takes time to learn a language. But the biggest concern is when you have long-term English learners, because ideally students should be getting enough academic language support to be able to get reclassified and not be considered an English learner before they reach that 7-year mark. And so these students have been in the system, or not our system, but an educational system, for 7 years or more, and they still have not been reclassified. They have not met the criteria to be reclassified.
Okay.
But correct me if I'm wrong, we do see a correlation with long-term English learners and special ed services and IEPs.
Yes, that's very true. And it's going to get even trickier, because the state has made it even more difficult to reclassify students with disabilities, because they have to there's a new criteria that all students that take the California alternate LPAC have to score an overall LPAC 3 on that assessment, or a 4 on the general ed assessment, which is still really hard to pass. And so in the past, IEP teams could make a recommendation to reclassify students based on their disability. That is no longer the case. The state has said they must pass the alternate LPAC or the regular LPAC assessment in order to be reclassified. So it's going to get harder.
Yeah.
And those numbers are going to look maybe just as bleak.
Okay. Any more questions?
Go ahead, please.
No.
Oh, no, I'm done. I'm finished now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's a lot of information.
It is.
And it seems like the state just keeps throwing on additional layers to cipher through, and so thank you for trying to, to simplifying it for us as well tonight.
Exactly.
Okay.
Did you have anything?
Okay. Okay, we are on to 11A, request to accept gifts, donations, or earmarked funds. And to Knight, Trustee Wolf will read the list of donations. Thank you, Trustee Wolf.
Thank you. Okay, the board is asked to accept with gratitude the following donations. The St. Helena Unified School District received the following donations totaling $800. $400 from the Soroptimist Club of St. Helena, and $400 from Noreen Fetzer. And it looks as though they were through gift cards, both great contributions to our district. And then the St. Helena Primary School received the following donations from Rutherford Ranch. The St. Helena Primary School faculty and staff were provided wine for their primary school holiday party. And the St. Helena Masons, also recipient, St. Helena Primary School and faculty, provided the venue, food, preparation service, and cleanup for the St. Helena Primary School party, which I did not get an invitation to. I'm just throwing that out there. But anyway, so thank you to our generous supporters. We love donations in every way that we have them. Thank you.
Yes, we do. Thank you. Item 11B, adoption of resolution number 24-23. Oh, I'm sorry.
I think you just. to
Yes,
go-
I did. Thank you, thank you. Is there anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
No?
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the gifts, donations, and earmarked funds as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr? Aye. Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
President Simon?
Aye, motion carried. Okay, now 11B, adoption of resolution 24-23, recognizing the significance of Black history. And I call on Trustee Pelosi.
Okay, my pleasure. Resolution 24-23 of the St. Helena Unified School District recognizing the significance of Black History Month for February 2025. Whereas the month of February is officially celebrated as Black History Month, which dates back to 1926 when Dr. Carter G. Woodson declared it as an important time in February to recognize the heritage and achievement of Black Americans. And whereas the St. Helena Unified School District supports the significance of Black History Month to honor the contributions of Black Americans in the nation's history, to learn more about the past and to better understand the experiences that have shaped the nation. And whereas the governing board acknowledges that the national theme of Black History Month for 2025 is African Americans in labor, focuses on the various and profound ways that work and working of all kinds, free and unfreed, skilled and unskilled, vocational and voluntary, intersect with the collective experiences of Black people. And whereas the St. Helena Unified School District recognizes that each student needs an opportunity to understand the common humanity underlying all people, to develop pride in their own identity and heritage, and to understand, respect, and accept the identity of and heritage of others. And whereas the St. Helena Unified School District greatly values ethnic and racial diversity and believes it enriches and strengthens our nation. And now, therefore, it is resolved that the governing board of the St. Helena Unified School District hereby supports the proclamation of February 2025 as Black History Month in the St. Helena Unified School District and encourages all schools to commemorate this occasion with appropriate activities.
Great, thank you. Is anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Okay, do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
No?
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of resolution 24-23 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr? Aye. Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
President Simon?
Aye, motion carried. 11C, adoption of resolution 24-24, School Board Recognition Month. Dr. McClay, please.
I would be honored to. Resolution number 24-24 of the St. Helena Unified School District recognizing School Board Recognition Month, January of 2025. Whereas citizen oversight of local government is the cornerstone of democracy in the United States, school board members are locally elected public officials entrusted with governing a community's public schools. The role of the school board is to ensure that school districts are responsible for the values, beliefs, and priorities of their communities, and whereas school boards fulfill this role by performing 5 major responsibilities: setting direction, establishing an effective and efficient structure, providing support, ensuring accountability, providing community leadership as advocates for children, the school district, and public schools. And whereas the mission of the public schools to meet the diverse educational needs of all children and to empower them to become competent, productive contributors to society and an ever-changing world is more poignant than ever before. And whereas St. Helena Unified School District's 5-member Board of Trustees representing the community of St. Helena prioritizes the academic, social, emotional, physical, and mental health needs of students and has made a steadfast commitment to serving our community each day. And whereas St. Helena Unified School District Board members provide a voice of advocacy for public schools schools and the welfare of students, and work closely with parents, educational professionals, and other community members to create the healthiest environments possible where all children can thrive. And now, therefore, we, the members of the St. Helena School community, hereby declare our appreciation to the members of the governing board and proclaim the month of January 2025 as School Board Recognition Month in the St. Helena Unified School District. We urge all community members to join us in recognizing the dedication and hard work of local school board members and working with them to create an education system that meets the needs of our children.
Thank you. Is anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
No?
Okay, is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 24-24 as presented?
I will make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
President Simon?
Aye, motion carried. Okay, 11D, adoption, the District of Choice caps for the 2025-26 school year. Dr. McClay.
Okay. We've got a lot of information packed into this item. It is rather dense. I think all of you have asked incredibly valid and thoughtful questions this week about this topic. So we've made a few revisions to try and include information that will answer those questions. I'm going to walk you through it as briefly yet succinctly as possible and then turn it over to you for discussion. The first topic that has come up quite a bit is in regard to transitional kindergarten. As you will recall, we traditionally have not included transitional kindergarten increases in our caps, therefore not creating any spots for our district of choice students. And that is our prerogative as a board, and it is also our responsibility in many ways to ensure that we are meeting the needs of our students, that we are fiscally responsible, that we have space, facility, that we have credentialed teachers, that we're meeting the state required ratios, et cetera, et cetera. So the first two models that we're going to show you for your consideration only vary in the area of transitional kindergarten. Everything else on those models is the same, with increases to certain grade level caps, and I'll walk you through those. But in regard to transitional kindergarten, we wanted to point out, oops, if you go back one, sorry, there you go. Yep, just for another second. It is an opportunity to increase enrollment. And there is a school of thought that the younger we can get children into our schools, the longer we have them, obviously, the more impact we can make. We know that a great deal of research supports early intervention, teaching reading as young as possible. We also know that most of the students in our region will come to us by a high school anyway. So the thought is if we can get them earlier, wonderful. Welcome them into our community of learning, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be an advantage, obviously, or one of the pros. One of the disadvantages, obviously, that really becomes our reality is that transitional kindergarten is an unfunded mandate. There are no funds that come with transitional kindergarten. It's just a requirement by the state that it be offered. So it's really what we would consider a double unfunded mandate if you increase the caps to allow in district of choice students. So once again, I'm trying to present some of the thoughts, some of the pros, some of the cons, so that you have the whole picture. There is also a new ratio requirement by the state for transitional kindergarten. This year and in years past, it has been a 12-to-1, meaning 12 students to a teacher. Once you hit the 13th student, you either need to add a second teacher, or in most cases, you're adding a paraprofessional. This coming school year, beginning July 1, that ratio decreases to 10-to-1. So every 10 students needs an adult. 20 students obviously needs 2 adults. You hit the 21st student, you need the 3rd adult. And so that becomes a factor, especially when it is an unfunded program. Another thing to consider is that transitional kindergarten requires a specific teaching credential, and many districts are struggling to find teachers who have gotten this credential. So it is one of the hardest positions to fill at the moment. And then the final
factor here with regard to transitional kindergarten, just to keep on your minds, is that transitional kindergarten, like kindergarten for many, many years before we had transitional kindergarten, is the most difficult grade level to project your enrollment. It's far simpler for us to look at, say currently, and I'm just going to grab a number right now, this isn't accurate, but let's say currently we have 62 second graders. We've got a pretty solid bet there to say we're going to have about 62 third graders next year, because those second graders are going to roll over. Now, obviously, some people move and some people, come in or leave, but oftentimes it stays relatively static, those grade levels, once students start in a system. But the one grade level that is the most difficult to project is your TK, used to be K, because it's the first grade level. If parents are new to school, meaning it might be their first child, they might not realize, no matter how many efforts we put into advertising, they might not realize that they need to register so early. Oftentimes parents are on the fence. Do I send my child? Do I not? Is my child ready? Should we wait a year? Et cetera, et cetera. There's just so many variables. A lot of preschools will offer the TK program as well. So if a child is already in preschool, the parent is on the fence. Well, public school would be free, but my child is happy at their preschool right now. Do we just stay with that? So again, I'm just pointing out some of the reasons why it's very, very difficult to predict what your incoming TK class is going to be. And that's not unique to us. That's since really the dawn of schools. So with that said, let's take a look at the next slide if we can. So here you have just kind of a look at what we've got this year, and then the two resolutions that we had put on the agenda originally. So for the 24-25 school year, where we are right now, you had established last year a cap of 16. This just proves my earlier point of how difficult it is to project, because we have 27 TK students enrolled. So that tells us, and we took 0 district of choice students last year. So last year, this appears to me that you were estimating or projecting a TK class of 16. Obviously, we had 27 come in. And so that meant with the 12-to-1 ratio, we are required to have 3 adults. So we had 2 teachers and 1 paraprofessional. So one of the models that you're going to see, or one of the resolutions for TK, was to assume, again, that's dangerous, assume a similar enrollment in TK. Now, we have really nothing to document that, right, or to support that, other than, well, we had 27 this past year. Birth rates have actually gone down for this coming year's incoming class. The following year, they're expected to go up as a result of the pandemic. But for this coming year, birth rates are down. The ratio changes. So if we staff at 27 next year, even with the change, we're still required the 3 adults. So our staffing needs would be the same. Our facility needs would be the same. The second resolution you're going to see, though, is in an effort to do what I said earlier, boost enrollment, get these students in as young as possible, early intervention. And so we looked at what is our capacity, where are we willing to kind of roll the dice and see if we let in a few district of choice students, regardless of how many applied, where would we be comfortable? And so Cabinet spent an inordinate amount of time really looking at every scenario. No matter how you shake it, though, it is a bit risky. The middle one is also a tad risky in the sense of if we go with a 27 cap, because we could have 8 transitional kindergartners come in and register. And that really is too low for a class to provide the social stimulation, the role models, the creative genius, et cetera, et cetera. So there are risks either way, and that's the nature of transitional kindergarten. But in the third model, Resolution 2428, Cabinet was willing to say, if we rolled the dice and increased that cap to 34, and if, notice we have another if, so now we're on the second assumption, if that meant we had the 27 enrolled, because we had 27 enrolled this year, we admitted 7 DOC students, that would give us 34. The ratio going down to 10-to-1 would require the increase of an additional para. And so obviously that is a cost to the district, either in the sense of hiring someone new or shifting someone's responsibilities. Either way, we would have to draw from somewhere. But we wanted to present both to you, knowing that there's been a strong desire to try to build enrollment, particularly at the primary level. So with that, we'll go to the next slide. Because one thing that I don't believe we made clear enough to you when we shared these is that because we pointed out the difference between these two resolutions with TK, I'm not sure that everyone realized that in both of these models, it was being suggested to increase the caps at the middle school and the high school level by 10. So in grades 6, 7, and 8, in 24-25, the cap was 100. This model takes it up to 110. At the high school level, the same thing. In 24-25, the 9 through 12 caps were 125. This model takes those up to 135. And so we apologize if that was not made clear to you. We were pointing out the difference in the TK between the two. So if you went with resolution 24-25, you would be hypothetically leaving TK the same on this resolution, opting for that middle column on the previous slide, assuming we're going to get approximately 27. You would be increasing middle school by a total of 30 and increasing high school by a total of 40, bringing up enrollment caps to 70. On the next resolution, you're awesome. Thank you. This is the one that shows the increase of TK by 7. And it also leaves the 30 in 6 through 8 and the 40 in 9 through 12, building enrollment to 1389. Cabinet was comfortable with either of these because when we look at the caps, we believe we have the room from a staffing and a facilities perspective while still maintaining what we pride ourselves on with low class size, still significantly lower than any surrounding and most districts. However, after receiving a lot of questions from you all and going back, I was very grateful. Several of you even sent me video clips from last year's board meeting, audio clips, things like that, so that I could listen to your discussions and try to bring myself up to speed on this. We added this last slide here, if you will. Thank you so much. Because theoretically and really realistically, you don't have to increase any caps. You just saw a lengthy presentation on the dashboard. We clearly have a lot of things that we are working on. We've got amazing things going on in this district, but what I said in my video in the community newsletter that you'll hear tomorrow, it clearly says it's not, though, as if we've arrived and everything is perfect. There are still a lot of things that we're focused on, a lot of priority areas. We've spent a great deal of time the last few months talking about $84 worth of, or $84 million. I wish it was $84. $84 million worth of facilities needs, right? And so you have a lot to weigh to make these decisions on when we increase caps and we bring in students, our expenditures go up. They do. And so that is a very critical part of your role. So this slide gives you some other options where you could modify the motion and or the resolution. So for example, the first bullet says you could adopt the same caps as 24-25. That would still allow in some of our district of choice students in certain grade levels and not in other grade levels. And that is completely in your purview. The next two bullets represent the resolutions where you would potentially increase TK by 7 and then the 10 in each of the middle school grades and the 10 in each of the high school grades. The next one is increasing middle and high, but not TK. And then the last four are variations of those based on questions I received from you. So I really just wanted to put it all in one place where you could have a dialogue and decide which ones you were most comfortable with. The last thing I will leave you with is that we have confirmed that we have 19 ninth graders coming in on the natural, meaning they will come regardless of what you decide on CAPS and district of choice. We will take 19 ninth graders from Pope Valley and Howell Mountain with open arms and smiles, and we will be excited to welcome them to the high school. But that is a factor. 19 students is a lot. And so even if you do adopt one of the proposals where you increase grade 9 by 9 students, there's no way we would be taking in all of the district of choice. In fact, I believe it would leave 19 that just so happens to be the same number, but 19 being denied. So that's a lot of information. We've brought a ton more of information with us, and we'll do our best to continue to answer the questions, but we wanted to lay it out and let you have the discussion.
Does anyone wish to comment on this agenda item publicly? Please come to the podium. And you will have 3 minutes to respond. Thank you.
So I have a student at the primary.
Okay.
And as parents, you know, we all want our kids to have a good start in education. And I think that TK is that gap between preschool and kinder. And I think it's a big opportunity for the young learners to build confidence and independence and essential skills that they need to enter kindergarten. And then I just think it's that environment that, you know, it gives them that confidence. So I'm just, you know, hoping that you guys consider taking TK for the open enrollment for this upcoming year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else who'd like to comment publicly? Okay. Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
We usually do.
I have some questions. First of all, you answered my question, would a fourth adult be a new hire? It possibly could be a new hire or a shifting of a pair's responsibilities. That's correct. So we don't know yet. Okay.
That is accurate. We would do a thorough analysis, which we do in the spring every year anyway, of all positions. We are in declining enrollment, so you know we are overstaffed in several places. So I would anticipate that we would have options to move, but it's not a guarantee until we get a little bit closer. The cost for a new para, if you're curious,
Yes.
Salary average is $31,000 with benefits at $11,000 for a total of $42,000.
Okay. Thank you. That was
If
my
we had to
next
hire.
question.
Okay.
And then my other question is, do we communicate with the local preschools to find out how many students are moving on to kindergarten the next school year? No, moving on to, well, it could either be TK or kindergarten. I'm just curious, you know, living in a small community, we know exactly what the preschools are, and do we find out who, you know, who's coming into our TKs or kinders?
I think Mrs. Rocha is nodding her head,
Okay.
yes. And I know that Mrs. Kerr was gracious to make a couple of phone calls today, even to Preschool for All,
Thank
to
you.
do an inquiry about incoming transitional kinders.
Okay. And do we have any information?
So, as of today, it looks as though it would be 14 students from St. Helena Preschool for All that would move into TK if they so desire.
Okay.
So up to 14.
Just from preschool for all.
Preschool for All. But again, those are most of those students are in our preschools already. So that's, you know, obviously there's other preschool students that aren't in Preschool for All.
Correct.
That could be moving our way as well.
And those,
Yep.
those of up to 14, those are not DOC.
That's correct. They're
Okay.
district within the district.
They're within the district,
Our
okay.
territory. Yes.
Okay.
Just in experience last year, having a TKer. I know it's a lot of times parents wait because many of the preschool administrators are trying to hold on to those children and kind of discouraging TK because that's their business. And we found there was a lot of discouraging. So they could be eligible, but it's hard to say. Because like I think you mentioned, you're at a program, you can do TK there, your child's comfortable. It's kind of like, why don't you stay here? So I think that it's hard to know on that, honestly.
And I absolutely agree with that. However, just because we're a nonprofit funding the students, our bylaws are such that if the student is of age to go to either TK or kindergarten, we're asking them to do that, just because we are limited funds, and so the majority of our students will move on to TK. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So, Dr. McClay, I would like to recognize and thank you for whoever told you to go back and look at this conversation over the last couple of years, because I felt like this week I did a disservice to you by not providing enough background on behalf of the board. I thought about that upon reflection, because I'm sure many people in this room will tell you that we have spent a great deal of time talking about this. So it's never an easy topic for anybody at this dais. And so I apologize just that if that wasn't made clear to you this past week on behalf of the board, but it sounds like somebody was able to kind of get you a little bit of background. I think what the unknown is what is really uncomfortable, and coupled with, the data that we do see. And I'm not speaking for the entire board, but I feel I will get a couple of nods, but what I'm about to say is that there's this hesitation to, even in the risk of declining enrollment, to continue to put more bodies in the classroom when we look at things, data presentations that aren't showing upward movement. I think I'm getting a couple of nods here. That's not to say that more students would make that more challenging, that it would worsen the situation, but I do know that's a factor that this board considers greatly as well. And I just putting factors out there just so that people in the audience can understand what this board thinks about when we make these decisions. We also, the unknowns come in. We don't know what kind of interventions are going to be needed for students. And when we take in students, all means all, and we want to make sure that everybody gets what they need to be a successful student. But sometimes that comes with a higher cost than one student to another student. And we have $84 million worth of deferred maintenance that we have to think about as well. So I think adding a para to me is not an astronomical cost if that's the way we decide to go, because to the point that if that's where we can get our new customers, so to speak, that it does make a lot of sense at a price tag maybe of $42,000 or moving an existing staff. I mean, that sounds plausible for the TK. I just know that there's been great concern at this dais about 6 through 12, even some with the elementary as well. So I would hope some other trustees will chime in on that. I'm going to just leave it at that. But I just wanted to acknowledge that the missing information you may have had from us, in the past coach, just that you haven't been here that long. So.
Thank you. That's very kind. But Cabinet has worked really hard. Ms. Madrigal has worked really hard to try to help me on this. This has been a steep learning curve. I've never done district of choice before, so it's now my new best friend.
Okay.
And I feel very well versed in it, thanks to you all and everybody else. So thank you.
Okay. So I'll stop for now and let somebody else.
I actually have almost the exact same comments, but you are always more eloquent than I, so. I feel the same about TK, mainly that by adding a para, we are increasing costs. I don't even, I guess, so I felt like leaving, I was surprised that we were increasing it beyond 16 to 27 as a base, because what if we only have 20? Then we are committing to 3 people versus 2. So it could not be 2 paras, and it could maybe not be the cost of 1 para, it could be the cost of 2. Does that make sense? So with a 10-to-1 ratio, and we only have 20 kids in district, and we let in 7 DOC, we've committed ourselves to 1 more para, and then the other option is committing to 2 more paras. So, and then there's also the cost of aftercare that we have signed up for some TKs that are eligible for that or participate. So I'm not in favor of adding DOC at the TK level, because I know TK is offered by every home school district, correct? I mean, TK is a requirement.
It is
in
required by
every
the law
district.
that they
Okay.
offer it, yes.
So every child will have a placement if a parent chooses to enroll for TK, correct? Okay. And then the same, I guess the exact same comments for the 6 to 12 area. I didn't get a good feeling for what the drivers are to support adding more students when when I would really like to focus on the students that we have. And that's it.
So I agree with Trustee Pelosi about just the resources, and we just there's a lot of unknowns coming our way. And for me, one of the things that is really important that we as a board decided to do many years ago was to provide additional fundings for our students for their student fees, different types of art materials, and anything that's needed in the classroom. The district provides that. We also provide our computer to each student. We provide district money for some of the larger being there experiences. And I'm only saying this because I don't want that to go away, because we're not able, because our resources are all of a sudden thin because of extra additional staff if needed, and extra students, because the extra students will have additional costs to us and resources. I feel anxious too about and agree with Trustee Pelosi as far as a student that may come to us that needs additional assistance with things. I know that can be very costly as well. And then, as when I was going through the audit report, it reminded me that we also have a $32 million pension liability, and that makes me a little bit anxious as well, along with our facilities. I'm not in support of increasing our 6 through 12 caps. I think that we're able to get the majority of our students in with the caps that we have to date on this year's caps. I still haven't made a decision about TK, because I think it's important to get the TK students in our schools at the very beginning, so that they can go through the entire time of their academic career. But I'm not sure about what cost, and I'm a little bit nervous if it goes even over the 27. That's what I'm feeling nervous about, because if I'm calculating in my mind, we're already at 14 with our preschool for all students, then we might be going over 27. That's my position right now.
I'm kind of torn, because I'm thinking, is there compromise? Could we say TK at 30? Because then we can use the staff we have existing now. We have 2 teachers and 1 para. Of course, then I know we don't know if 10 children will show up on August 15th, and now our TK, we've said 30 and now we have 40. Knowing the community, and this is just observation, I have no factual evidence on this, just knowing people, it doesn't seem like there is a huge like this year, there were a ton of little 4-year-olds, mostly boys. I don't see that in the community, just knowing, having someone that age in the community. But again, I'd like to see 30, but then I do understand as those children start moving up, those are now DOC students that we will never have funding for as they go through our system, part of the class. So I'm really torn on that one because I think TK is just a phenomenal experience. I'd love to see get more kids in there, but that's my mixed feelings.
Thank you. Just to clarify, and also for the aftercare costs, the ELOP dollars that we're going towards, will those still be available?
Our ELOP allocation is, every year, it's been decreasing
Right.
slightly, and so we are projecting a smaller allocation in the future years. But as of now, those are supposed to be ongoing dollars.
Okay. Thank you.
And also what we've talked about, just a reminder, is that when we accept our Pope Valley and our Howell Mountain students in high school, that funding does not come with them because they are in districts that do not have a high school. We provide that for them. Still something I'm trying to wrap my head around as to why we do not receive funding from those districts, so, which is unfortunate. So I'm hearing from the board members, there's a lot of unknowns. There's required staff and resources that we need to think about. There's concerns about some of the data from the dashboard that we want to address. We have concerns about facilities and pension price tags. So I'm wondering where we should go from here, if there is.
I have a question that
Yeah.
I should know the answer to that I don't. Is anything adjustable later? Say TK, all of a sudden it's August and we have 3 kids signed up. Could we go back to people that applied and say, hey, could we have a wait list? I don't remember the answer to that.
So all of the students who were drawn today are going to be placed on a wait list for each grade level. And then as we have room and how they compare to the adopted caps, we can do that. However, after the school year, we have to make that decision by May 15th of every year.
Okay, so we can't look at when we get closer to see. Okay,
That's correct.
okay. That was my solution.
So what I'm thinking though is with that, if I remember this correctly, is we usually start the enrollment process for our TK and kindergartners like in March time, I'm thinking, February. So we might have by May 15th, we might have kind of an idea of how many are coming in at that time too.
Yeah,
Where we
I
might
mean,
be able to revisit.
May is late.
And remember, it is also the grade level, like kinder used to be, that changes at the last minute more than any other grade level, because parents change their minds, understandably, right? We've all been there. Are we going to wait, or are we going to send our child?
Yeah.
I've thought, I guess it was 2 years ago, we had a special meeting or a meeting in August on caps.
We've
so-
had, was like,
So I
yeah.
guess I thought that was allowed, but maybe not anymore. Either way, the other thing I forgot to mention is I did ask for a data point on the cost of the aftercare for TK, and it's currently $10,000 per student.
Okay.
So,
For the year?
Uh-huh.
10,000 per year?
correct, per student.
Per student.
And are we required by the state of California to provide aftercare to TK?
Only for what are called our unduplicated students we're required out of our ELOP. So that would be a small portion of them we would be required to. That is something that Cabinet has been discussing. It's not agendized for tonight, but I do believe you will see in the near future that we're going to make some recommendations that we change the way we're funding that, and if we're funding all students versus just those that we're required to.
And would we have a rough estimate of how many that are, of these, say, 20 that go, are 10 required, 20, and just any rough idea?
There are 19 currently. Do you know, Dr. Vang, how many would qualify as UDP?
No, we were looking into that today. We didn't get to finish our data analysis, so we will have that information by tomorrow. Speakers moving on. Okay, so, we have two choices, -25 and -28.
Well, actually, one of the choices is
Well,
no,
Right.
adopt
Yeah,
the
I
same
mean, and then
caps,
the third.
which is not a
yeah.
resolution
So the
number.
other thing I was gonna say is, I'm also feeling that perhaps adopting the same caps is what might be a motion that we're feeling more comfortable with at this time.
Yeah, there's,
Could
I
I,
was going to make that motion.
okay,
you can go ahead and make a modified.
Yes.
Yeah.
please.
Oh.
So,
A modified resolution? Or do I make a motion to adopt the same caps as
you can
2024,
make a motion to
2025?
adopt the same caps.
Okay.
Okay.
That,
But it is a.
Yes, so if you could just, I think what would be preferred is if you would to adopt a resolution 24-25 with a revised chart reflecting the caps. I have them on the screen right now from 24-25.
Sean, can I ask a question before you propose it? So if we go with the same, can we revisit the TK wait list in May
sounds like we can.
and get, I mean, just to kind of see if by the time registration's done, if, I know we could get more, but if there's only like 5, maybe we can revisit adding a few with still leaving room for new people to come in.
My recommendation would be April, because
April?
with our
Okay.
board meeting in May and staffing and schedules that have to be created, I think May we're putting a lot of unnecessary stress and capacity on staff trying to wrap up the school year as well on May. And I don't have the exact date of our May 15th board meeting, but I think if you wanted to revisit, this is just, please chime in, but I would say if we move it to anything would be April.
That's a good point, and I understand that. I respect that. I would like to suggest that we
When does
revisit it.
registration start?
February.
Registration starts in February, and one of the things I was going to suggest is
So it's 1
we
month.
could ask Mrs. Rocha to provide in her monthly update, what is the current number that have registered? And we can watch the trend. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm now not sure how to say this, but I think I'm proposing a motion to adopt resolution 24-25 with a modified chart as shown on the board, or sorry, on the screen.
I think I would recommend to adopt resolution 24-25 with a modification of the DOC enrollment cap chart to reflect the same numbers as adopted in 24-25.
Am I allowed to say ditto?
I was gonna say, good luck with that.
Okay.
You've got this.
I would like to make a motion to adopt resolution 24-25 to accept the DOC caps that are presented in the chart shown, but it reflects the same caps as 2024, 2025.
Yes. Is there a second?
Should we also add with the, do we need, do revisit the TK? Do we need to add that?
So typically, when it is what we have done in the past, our past practice for grade levels that are so close in adoption as to the wait list is we actually don't extend offers until we get closer to the month. So we won't make any offers to TK students until the month of April when we have solid numbers on who is enrolled. But we can bring that back if that's what you would like. As an agenda
Are you
item.
basically saying a future agenda item for the April meeting to revisit the caps or revisit the enrollment?
Well, but I want to say though, I'm just talking about TK. I'm not thinking about any
Correct.
other grades.
I'm
Yeah,
with you.
yeah.
In addition, we'll keep you updated at least monthly with what the current registration numbers look like for TK.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So does the motion that's on the table, is that good to go as for a second?
Okay.
So
Is
I'll make that, I'll second that.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf? Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
President Simon?
Aye. Motion carried. Okay. We are moving on to 12A, consideration of approval for resolution 24-26, skipping and competence criteria. And let's see here, Mr. Heller.
That is I. Good evening. The board is asked to approve this resolution 24-26, which establishes skipping and bumping rights and a process for certificated employees in the district with alignment with California Education Code 44955D. This process would allow employees with less seniority but more experience in particular areas of need to skip a more senior employee in case that need arises. The conditions for potential district needs are listed within the resolution in which this situation may occur, and I am asking the board to approve this.
Okay. Is anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
No?
No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 24-26 as presented?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
President Simon?
Aye, motion carried. 12B, consideration of approval for Resolution 24-27, order of layoff for certificated employees, tie-breaking criteria. Mr. Heller.
So similar to the previous resolution, the board's asked to approve 24-27, which establishes an order of layoff of certificated employees in the district in alignment with California Education Code 44955B. In previous years, we have not exercised the need for layoffs in March. This is not something that we anticipate that we are going to need, but it's always a good practice for us to do this annually in January to establish both resolutions. So I would ask the board approve this one as well.
Okay. Is anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
No?
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 24-27 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
President Simon?
Aye, motion carried. Okay, we'll move on to more resolutions with facilities, 13A. Adoption of Resolution 24-21, filing of applications for state allocation board-administered facility hardship and/or facility hardship seismic mitigation programs. Call on Dr. Vang.
Thank you, President Simon. So Proposition 2 has passed, and it requires a facilities master plan be submitted with all state funding applications, though the regulations for this requirement have yet to be written and adopted. So for the time being, the state is requiring resolutions be adopted by the board, acknowledging a facility master plan will be required at a later date. The governing board resolution must also acknowledge that projects may be rescinded for failure to submit a facility master plan with the required components. And as I mentioned earlier, the state has not determined what those required components are. So thus we have the resolutions in place, just acknowledging so that the board can acknowledge that you know that, and facilities master's plan will be required moving forward.
Okay. Is anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
No?
Okay, is there a motion to?
I have a quick,
yes.
just a quick question.
Absolutely.
So in reading the resolution, it sounds like it's a 5-year facility plan?
It is a 5-year facility plan, but the Office of Public School Construction, as I mentioned earlier, has not come up with what those components are that they will require in the new facilities master plan. So we're working closely with King Consulting. Once that information comes out, we'll make sure that our facility master plan includes those required components.
Okay, so it's the date and the exact details are to be determined at this
Yes,
point?
correct.
Okay. And this is just to set us up so that we can do that?
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
perfect.
So then my question is, will we revisit this resolution once the updates happen by the
Not
state?
the resolution, but our facility master plan, which Dr. McClay and I are working on with our construction team and King Consulting. We have majority of the information that we need to get this, to create the plan. We're just waiting for what are those required components moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 24-21 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
President Simon?
Aye, motion carried. 13B, adoption of Resolution 24-22, filing of applications for state allocation board administered programs. Dr. Vang.
Thank you. Again, this is another resolution that the board needs to approve to acknowledge that we will be submitting a facilities master plan with our future projects we submit, and that if we do not, our application may be rescinded.
Is anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
No?
Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 24-22 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
President Simon?
Aye, motion carried. 13C, approval to award a contract for the Robert Louis Stevens Middle School Waterline Repair Project. Dr. Vang.
Thank you. For this agenda item, I'm bringing forth our lowest bid for the board to review and approve. We had 4 bids that came in for the RLS water line repair. The lowest bid was actually a bid that included some clerical error, so they withdrew their bid, and the second lowest bid is now WR Ford Associates in the amount of $118,000, and so that's the bid that I'm bringing forth to the board for approval.
Okay. Is anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item? Okay.
No, not really questions, but
Okay.
it's a hefty price tag for what is repairing, and we all understand the costs associated with construction on school sites. I just would like to make sure that solid plans, they are reviewed so that nothing else gets damaged or broken in the process of repairing one line. And doing a little separate research on that company. They have a very high reputation as well, which I know other people do, but it's my background to also vet vendors. I always feel it's important. So I feel that they're competent to handle the job, but I also feel like this is something that we have to make sure that the project managers are really on this, because, cracking somewhere incorrectly creates another $118,000. And so I'm just putting my commentary out there to go on record. No change orders, because
That was my comment.
Yes.
Please no change orders if we can, yeah.
so thank you. That's
Okay. Ugh, I know, that concerns me now.
it's just it's
No, it's a good reminder and good, important comment. Okay, is there a motion to approve the contract award for the RLS water line repairs presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
President Simon?
Aye, motion carried. Okay, item 14A, review and consider approval of the 2023-24 audit report. Dr. Vang.
Thank you again. Trustees, you have in front of you a hard copy of the audit report for the 23-24 fiscal year, which ends June 30th, 2024. It was completed by our auditors, Christy White and Associates. This is our 8th year that we've been working directly with Christy White. If you open up your booklet to the last tab under findings and question costs, you'll notice that our auditors gave us an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion you can get from auditors. However, I do, in full transparency, we did have one audit finding related to our expanded learning opportunities program, and that was due to the fact that our auditors had requested 5 randomly selected students asking for their registrations from the Boys and Girls Club, and we did not get those registrations, those copies of the registrations that our auditors requested, and thus there is a finding. So there you go.
Right. And once you the Boys and Girls Club presents that documentation to you, you submit it to Christy White, the finding is then cleared.
The finding will be cleared next year when
Okay.
you see the report come back, just like on the last page of 86 and 87, you'll notice that the prior year's finding is here, and then they'll
Correct.
come back and report out that the finding has been corrected, we're good to go.
Okay. One follow-up question, has the Boys and Girls Club been given like a deadline on when to get that paperwork to you?
We're working with them.
Okay, great, okay. Thank you.
Okay, do the trustee,
Oh, do we skip?
yeah, we
Sorry.
did skip. Is there anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Okay. Do the trustees have any other questions for this agenda item? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the 2023-24 audit report as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
President Simon?
Aye, motion carried. 14B,
Just one thing, can I?
Yes.
Congratulations on a
Absolutely.
good finding of audit. So that is to be commended to you and your team. So that's important to acknowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 14B, contracts over 25,000, January 2025. Dr. Vang.
So for contracts over 25, I have 2 contracts. One is for Diamond Quality. You may recall that last year, February of 2024, that was when the board approved the original contract for Diamond Quality. Prior to Diamond Quality, we were servicing our pool in-house, and we are no longer servicing our pool in-house, so we've contracted out. My understanding in speaking with our athletic director and Waves is that they are content with Diamond Quality. This is probably the best water. This is probably the best we've had in terms of our pool maintenance. So it is we would like to continue with this vendor. And then the second contract is for Casa Studio for the primary school roof replacement and dry rot repair. This is the second phase of Casa's contract.
Okay. Is there anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
I have a question for the roof then. Does that whittle down our 83 million to like 82,999 million or something? Was that part of the? No. Oh, okay.
It's not.
Dr. Vang, I have a question about the Diamond Quality. Has that price, the $65,000, has that increased from last year?
No, the monthly fee, $5,225, I believe, is the same monthly rate that they have, they're keeping for us. However, in speaking with Diamond Quality, they were transparent in letting me know that if for this calendar year 2025, they will not raise our price, our rate. However, to keep up with inflation costs in 2026, there is a good chance that we will see an increase in costs.
Okay. Have they given you an idea of what that percentage might be?
No, it depends how this year goes. So they're kind of waiting out to see what this year looks like, but they are pretty sure that we will see an increase.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I just want to be transparent about the studio one. What we were discussing kind of on the side was the question that Jean Marie and Trustee Wolf asked is it part of of our $82 million or whatever of our facilities, or is it in addition to? That's what we were.
I don't recall this being on our list. If you remember, the elementary roof is, but not the primary roof. This was an emergency that we discovered that needs to be dealt with. However, keep in mind that the primary school already has applications in line, and now the Prop 2 has passed. We should see some funding coming our way in the future years. So that will help offset some of this costs.
Okay. And with that, so as far as the timing, is it in a couple of years that we will see that? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
So I guess I am confused. I thought the primary school was like a $5 million project that we saw, and we prioritized it last time, and I thought that was in the overall facilities.
Primary school is included, but I don't recall the roof being included. I could be wrong, but I'm almost...
I don't think it was, because it was the discovery of all that dry rot, and then as they started to assess
Yeah.
further and review and pull back.
But it's all part of the, I thought, quoted $5 million project to fix the primary school roof.
But it's not really fixing the roof, this is just fixing the,
Oh, dry
right?
rot
the-
and then fix the
the
roof.
dry
so that
rot,
this
it's
doesn't
not
happen
the
again.
actual
Right.
taking
I
off.
Fix it so that, and then.
Because I think
fix
the roof
so it
was
doesn't happen
there,
again.
yeah.
Okay, I see. You're right.
Okay. Any other questions?
No?
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the contract over $25,000 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
President Simon?
Aye, motion carried. 15A, future agenda items. So for our February 13th regular board meeting, we have an Adopt a School report by Trustee Wolf. Student board member presentation. We have the introduction of the CSEA board. Williams Quarterly, Quarter 3. We will have an LCAP mid-year monitoring report presentation, RLS showcase, and we will have consolidation of application winner, notice of layoffs, if any, board policy updates, CSEA Sunshine, SHUSD Sunshine, Give Big presentation, Classified School Employee of the Year 2025, Teacher of the Year 2025, and a report on artificial intelligence. That's will be interesting. More to come. Any other regular board meeting items from?
We are missing the data, student data deep dive, which I know we were targeting for January. We filled it with something else, but I thought it was then supposed to be February. And if it's not, if it's moving to March, that's fine. I just want to make sure that it's not lost.
Okay.
We can do it in February or March, whichever you prefer. And we can have Ms. Madrigal reach out to you all to try and find a new date for a workshop in one of those months if you'd like.
Okay.
I think it's better suited for a workshop unless you want to try and do it in a
fine.
meeting. Okay.
I agree. Yeah. Okay.
Is the January 17th off of our calendars?
No,
Because
it's now.
Usually they list it on here.
Yeah.
No.
It is currently on our calendar still for that
Okay.
special transition workshop. However, I did receive a text very early this morning from Mr. Rutherford with some family emergencies that I've yet to have an opportunity to
Okay.
talk to Mrs. Simon about. So we'll know more within 18 hours.
Okay,
Okay. Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Do any of the other trustees have subjects for future agenda items?
I do, and it's certainly not urgent, and it's not, I mean, it doesn't even, it could happen whenever it happens, and it's, because I brought it up earlier, the other post-employment benefits and the net pension liabilities. For me, I think we just need kind of a little bit of a, what that is, what we need to do with it, what do we do with it in the future? Just more information about it, if that makes sense. And I'm only asking if you feel like that's something appropriate.
So
for
you're
us.
looking for like a status update on,
That, and just so that we know what it is and how.
A little
how-
background, education, and stuff. Okay.
Education around those two.
I would appreciate that as well.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think, thank you.
And like I said, it doesn't have, it's not an emergent, I mean, it's whenever we can fit it in.
Okay. Anything else? Oh, okay. All right, so let me see. 16A, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll
I'll
make a motion to go. No, go ahead.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
President Simon?